The views and opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of Atlanta 24 Community Media, staff, management, and its affiliates. Welcome to Sean Garvey and My Special Guest, the show in which we have one-on-one conversations with the best and brightest influential people in the industry, from community leaders to entertainers and so much more. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Sean Garvey and My Special Guest. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another special edition of Sean Garvey and My Special Guest. I am Sean Garvey, and joining with me today is here to talk about all things considered legal. We are talking to the principal attorney of the Atkins law firm, principal attorney Corlice Atkins, joining with me today. Attorney Atkins, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we get into all things considered legal and what have you, Attorney Atkins, you are a principal attorney. You've been doing this for X amount of years, so many years now. When did you know that this was your calling to be in this legal profession? Talk to us about that.
So I actually didn't decide until my senior year of undergrad. I majored in Spanish. I wanted to move to New York to be a translator at the UN, and my dad said no. He said, you can't do that. So you better find something else to do. And I had a friend who was in his third year of law school, and I said, okay, well, maybe I'll try that. And so I took the LSAT my senior year and got a scholarship and went to law school.
And the rest was history from there.
The rest was history.
And I got to mention, too, that you are an alumni of Howard University. HU, that's correct. And the Howard University School of Law, where everything started for you. And, of course, you started your legal career at the Maryland office of the public defender before moving to the Office of Civil Rights at the USDA. And can you talk to our viewers a little bit more about that journey? Like, what was that journey like for you? I know it had to come with some obstacles and some challenges and things of that nature.
So even before I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, I was always involved with the community. Always a big sister, volunteered in schools around DC. Had a passion, and that part of that is the Howard upbringing. So we're definitely taught to give back. Went to law school, and I didn't know what I really wanted to do. But as somewhere around my second year, I said, well, what can I do? What changes can I make? And having been in the DC metro area for so long, of course, when you look around and you see little black boys getting locked up, little black girls getting locked up left and right. And so in my third year, I enrolled in the criminal justice clinic. And we are allowed to represent misdemeanor clients in DC Superior Court. I went to court, had a homeless person charged with theft. It was about 4 or 5 of us, little baby lawyers together, got him off, and then I knew that was it. That was it for me. So out of school, first job was at the Maryland Public Defender's Office and the Juvenile Division. And so I went straight out of school to representing mostly little black boys in the Baltimore area. And they were charged with anything from shoplifting to attempted murder. And it was my calling, I felt, to give those boys the best shot that I could. So one thing that was very important to me, public defenders have a terrible reputation nationwide, called public pretenders. We're not real lawyers. And so it was very important to me that my clients felt that they had a real lawyer and real legal representation. And so I spent days and days and days at the juvenile detention facilities. I made sure that if my clients were locked up, They got visits from me regularly. They knew what was going on with their cases. I sat with them. I had them understand the process, so they didn't go to court and just see me for the first time and yeah, I'll just plead guilty. They understood that if you want to try this case, we're going to try this case. Any client I've ever had who wants to go to trial, we're going to go to trial. No forced plea bargains. You take every case seriously. And so, a lot of your clients are guilty. And then you have to try to get them the best sentence that you can get them. So it doesn't stop at guilt or innocence. Your representation doesn't stop there. So your zealous representation of that client goes all the way through. And I wanted my clients to make sure that I was working for them to get them the best outcome that I could.
Why do you think at times, Attorney Atkins, why do you think it's very hard or difficult for people, for one, to know he or she's legal rights? Why do you think that's difficult?
No one teaches this. I worked in an organization called Street Law when I was in law school, and we would just hold clinics for high school kids to tell them what to do if you're pulled over, what to do if someone knocks on your door, what to do if someone an officer asks to search you, just what your rights are. But if no one's taught you that, no one teaches you that in school, how would you know what your rights are? And so automatically you think if you're pulled over, you have to do everything that they say do. And they meaning the police, when that's not necessarily the case. When you're pulled over, you're afraid. When you're stopped by an officer on the street, fear takes over and you just comply. You just start talking. You don't know that you don't have to talk. You don't have to say a word to them. You can say, I invoke my right to counsel, and that should end any interview. But the situation, and that's how they're trained to be coercive, to intimidate suspects. So they're trained to be aggressive. We don't know our rights. It's a perfect storm to just get yourself in all kinds of trouble.
Because right now, with the justice system being the way that it is, there's no doubt that there are innocent people that are incarcerated, that are locked up or in some type of custody. They may not know all their legal rights, or they may not have the type or the right type of legal representation that they should have had or they should have deserved in court. And the legal system can be very, very tricky at times, but it's all about having the right legal representation, knowing your rights, and knowing what the pros and cons, especially knowing what the legal ramifications are whenever someone is in a situation. And I'm glad that we have you join with us today to talk about one's legal rights, or what happens when someone is in a situation where they are in the custody of law enforcement and police. So I want to start off by asking the question to you, Attorney Atkins, because the people want to know, especially people who have been in situations before and what have you, that may not know what their rights are. Let's start off with Miranda rights. What is Miranda rights? When you hear people say or break down Miranda rights, what does that mean actually?
So that comes from a famous case from the 60s, I think, out of Florida. And the most important part of your Miranda rights is that you have the right to remain silent, because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And what that means is if somebody stops you, and you can say things for any kind of reason. Like, you can be nervous, you can say anything. But, if I drop that bag and I say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I dropped my bag. Okay, they can use that statement against you and say, well, you said the bag was yours. Because then if I later come to court and say, that bag was not mine, the statement that I made that said, oh man, I dropped my bag, can be used against me. So it's best, you have to comply, but compliance is, this is my name, here's my ID. If I'm being held, if I'm being arrested, you give your ID, you give your name. You don't have to give any other information other than I'd like to speak to my attorney. And you should not give. And they'll say, hey, we're just asking a question. No big deal. If you answer this question, we'll let you go. So officers are allowed to lie to you. So they'll say, just answer the questions and then you can go home. And you answer the questions and then they lock you up still. just answer the questions and we'll let you walk. We're not here for you. We're here for somebody else. Anything you say, they can use against you.
Mm-hmm. In some instances, some people that feel like they haven't done anything wrong, they tend to be combative towards the police officer when they are being pulled over or stopped or confronted by a law enforcement official, and they tend to be combative and what have you. And they may not know what their Miranda rights are or what have you. What do you advise that person when they are being pulled over, when they are being stopped or confronted by the police? What do you advise that person to do when they come in contact with a law enforcement agent?
You ask why you're being pulled over or detained or stopped, and that's it. You ask the reason. Don't give anything. So even if you're driving and you get pulled over and they say, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Well, if you say, "Yes, I was going 85 and a 60, they can say, "Oh, check mark." And then if you try to fight that ticket, they go to court and the officer says, "Well, she admitted that she was going 85 and a 60. So why am I being pulled over, officer? There's no expectation of privacy in that situation. So you can turn your phone camera on at that point. I don't know why I'm being pulled over. Here's my license. Here's my insurance. Can I search your car? You cannot search my car. You have to have a search warrant." So if you consent to a search, anything that comes out of that search is good. So don't consent to a search. Especially if you know you have something in your car, don't consent to a search. But you don't have to consent to a search anyway, because they have to have probable cause to want to search your vehicle. And so if there's no reason for them to think you have any contraband, any drugs, any guns, just a regular traffic stop doesn't invoke probable cause that there is something illegal in your car. So again, try to remain calm. I know that's harder for us because when you think of police brutality, of course you think of us, but you try your best to remain calm and say as little as possible.
Principal Attorney Corlice Atkins of the Atkins Law Firm, joining with me, Sean Garvey, and my special guest, discussing legal rights, all things considered legal, and knowing your rights whenever you are in a very, very difficult situation. Now, from being stopped by a police officer to now, you and, let's say, for example, one has been arrested and has been placed in police custody. And so now that person is in the interrogation room and they're being questioned by police. What do you advise a client, like say if it's your client and what have you, what do you advise them to do when they are being questioned by law enforcement? In those type of rooms, it can be very intense.
Mm-hmm. Say nothing. Say absolutely. If you are in an interrogation room, you have no reason to speak if you don't have a lawyer. Zero reason. You're never going to outsmart the police because the police are allowed to tell you a lie. And then you're over there thinking of a story that can justify their lie. So when they come and say, "Well, we actually found that shirt in your house," and then you start scrambling and saying, "No, it wasn't my, well, actually gave me the shirt." You're digging yourself into a hole because the shirt may or may not be there. So there's no way you can defend a lie, and you will just get yourself into all sorts of trouble trying. So there's absolutely no reason. If you are in an interrogation room, there is zero reason for you to speak to the police without representation. And that is your right.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think of what happened to the Central Park Five, which are now known as they're not known as the Central Park Five anymore, but the exonerated Central Park Five or the exonerated Five. And I think back when those five young men, they were put into police custody, and they had all these different people come in, detectives and people of law enforcement, asking them questions and stuff, and we come to find out that they were accused of something that they did not do, but they were pretty much framed for a crime that they didn't commit, spent time in jail and prison, and then we saw the aftermath of what happened after that. And so, how important, and it kind of goes back to one of the questions that I asked you earlier, Attorney Atkins, how important it is for a parent or somebody from the legal field to have those conversations with a son or a daughter or somebody that is young, to really let them know, hey, when you're being interviewed by a law enforcer or what have you, like how important it is to have those conversations with young people when they are in a particular situation like that.
So those conversations should be had the minute they are old enough to go outside with their friends. So 8, 9, 10 years old, my daughter knows if a police officer stops you and you're with your friends or you're not with an adult, you call your mother. You don't talk to anybody, you call your mother. In Georgia, a parent can consent to officers speaking to their children. So please don't do that to parents. I have kids now, clients now, where they're caught up because mom said, yeah, you can talk to them, and then they just spilled the beans. Well, if mom had said you can't talk to them, then we would be in a different situation here. And it's not about taking accountability. We can do that the right way. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying, if he went and, I have some kids that like to shoplift from the vape stores. So that's a favorite right now. If you're out there shoplifting, okay, you do need to be held accountable, but there's a right and a wrong way. And you want to ensure by not speaking to the officers without a lawyer or parent, should be a lawyer, but definitely a parent, you want to ensure that they're not coerced into saying anything that's not true. So the point of having your lawyer involved is not to say, if you're guilty, you won't get in trouble. The point is to make sure that all of your rights are being preserved. No one's forcing you to say anything, that you're not saying anything because you think you'll walk out that day, because they're offering you something to eat, because you think your friend has told on you. Accountability is important, but the legal system was set up that way for a reason, and not to railroad little kids, not to railroad young Black men.
Mm-hmm. Interesting point. Attorney Atkins from the Atkins Law Firm joining with us, Sean Garvey, and my special guest. I want to switch gears for one moment. We have seen in recent months, Attorney Atkins, several celebrities being highlighted in the news in courtrooms, and they've been facing a lot of heat from all areas, the media, social media, and everything in between, right? And there's this thing in the justice system where some people on the outside looking in, Attorney Atkins, that these celebrities are getting less of a harsh treatment, or they're getting some type of favoritism or whatever you want to call it for crimes that they allegedly have committed, that the regular average Joe person has committed, but they're not getting harsher penalties because of their celebrity name or their celebrity status and what have you, and we've seen it even with the Young Thug trial that happened just recently. And then fast forward to the Diddy situation, of course, and his awaiting sentencing to happen in October. I know you've been having your eyes kind of somewhere glued to some of what happened during the Diddy case and what have you. Is there really a thing of favoritism with celebrities in the justice system? Do you think that's the case?
So I wouldn't say with celebrities, but I would say it's a money thing. It's a class thing. So some cities, some major cities, Chicago comes to mind, have gotten rid of cash bail for misdemeanors and for certain nonviolent felonies, because we had a lot of people sitting in jail just because they could not afford to pay the bail. So if, I'm a single parent household, mom can't afford to come help on my bail, and you're out here in the suburbs coming from a upper middle class family, we commit the same crime, I'm sitting in jail awaiting trial for months and months and months while you're out living your life because your family could afford to pay that bail that my family could not. So I wouldn't say it's a celebrity treatment. If it was a celebrity treatment thing, I think Diddy would have been out pending trial. But, he got a little loose with the witness tampering accusations. But it's more of I think, a financial thing than a celebrity thing.
So it's like a cash thing, a celebrity thing, if you will, and we've seen it happen so many times throughout history. I mean, we can even go all the way back to the OJ trial in the 90s, and some of the highlights that we've seen in the news lately with celebrities and some of what they've been accused of, or even went to jail and went to prison for, and getting shorter sentences, or Attorney Atkins getting pardoned by whoever is in leadership at the time, by the president of the United States, right? And with the pardon thing, because some of us on the outside looking in, right, whether you are political savvy or not, why do you think that's in place from a legal perspective, from your legal opinion? Why do you think that is in place for the head of state or someone that's in a presidential office to pardon people of crimes that they either been accused of or have done? Why do you think that pardon thing has been put in place for?
Oh goodness, the presidential pardon power, it may have come with the founding fathers. I don't know a time where a president wasn't able to pardon people, and that probably came from the thought of you had all these different parties and sub parties and skirmishes and wars, and so it probably came from an idea of, okay, I was just fighting my neighbor and now we're fine and now things have changed, and so I want to be able to, because things have changed politically, I want to be able to let him back into the Congress. So that probably came from the way back when they would get mad about land rights, whatever, who knows what, be mad at each other one day, come back together the next day, but you can't be considered a political prisoner. So you gotta, they probably pardoned some of the Confederates. I'm sure they did. So I'd say it stemmed from that. And now, it just depends on what the agenda of the president is. Biden pardoned some non-violent drug offenders, a lot of them, but then they're pardoning, their family members or people who are loyal to the party.
Yeah, I see it to some extent as giving people a second chance at life and just being able to go out here and do better to make sure that they don't end up or go back into the system ever again. There is still a stigma of the whole celebrity thing in today's society and what have you. And as a person who believes in second chances, I'm looking at it from a moral standpoint and just say, if you're going to be pardoned for crime or for crimes that you've done in the past and you have been reformed, I feel that you have to do what is in the best interest of you and the community to make sure that you don't end up back in prison or back in jail by participating in more and more community outreach programs and be able to just walk that straight and narrow line and be as much of a stand-up citizen as much as possible. You want to make sure that coming out, you more of a better version of yourself to society than how you go back in. Would you say?
I mean, absolutely. And so, we see this liberal bleeding heart idea, right? But the point is, if you do not provide resources, the recidivism rate is going to be high. The mayor of Baltimore, young guy, got all these funds from the governor, and he put all these funds into, he had summer programs. He put all of his funds into youth education. There's a list of things that he did for the youth in Baltimore, and the crime rate over the summer reduced something like 62%. And that just goes to show you it's not socialism. If I've done 15 years and I come out and I don't have a trade and nobody will hire me and I have to go work at McDonald's, and I'm not saying no one should work at McDonald's, but that's my only option, and I can't make any money and I can't support my family, what am I going to do except what I know, what I did before? So if you don't help me, society doesn't help me, what choice do I have? And for people who are saying, "No, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps or go get a job," how? If I've been locked up for 15 years, can I just go to the local tech school? Can I don't know. Nobody told me, and this is, cyclical. This is a generational problem that we have now. You asked earlier why I became a lawyer. It's because when my dad said a translator is not a real job, I said I'll be a lawyer. My friend was in law school, but also Black kids are taught, go be a doctor, go be a teacher, go be a lawyer. Those are the three things we're supposed to go do. So when he told me, no, you can't do that, my friend's in law school, I was like, oh yeah, lawyer. But when I went to school, I was like, I'll be a doctor. And then, I couldn't wake up for organic chemistry and probably got a terrible grade and had to drop it. But then I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a doctor. And I thought I found another job. And my dad said, no, okay, I'll go be a lawyer. Doctor, lawyer, teacher. Nobody teaches me how to go be a doctor, a lawyer, teacher. If my mom wasn't a doctor, and I'm a first generation college student, by the way. But if I'm taught, my mom worked at the factory, I go work at the factory. But now I can't go work at the factory because I've been in jail. Okay, what do I go do? How do I know how to do it?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember my mom told me, we had a particular conversation at one point, and my mom told me, Sean, you debate so much, you should have been a lawyer. Yeah. You should have been a lawyer. And I said, yeah, because then I'll probably be making more money than I did in radio. So just a side note there, but I can understand where you're coming from. Attorney Atkins from the Atkins Law Firm joining with us. Speaking of political, let's switch gears again and talk about some of these new laws that have been implemented in the state of Georgia just recently. And I'll go over some of them with you within the interest of time here. Ban on cell phones from kindergarten to 8th grade, which happens to be House Bill 340. Elementary and middle schools must keep personal cell phones away from students during school hours. Other personal electronic devices are also banned. What does that mean to parents that send their children to school and having their cell phones being taken away during school hours? We know sometimes in some instances, Attorney Atkins, things happen in school, especially with the recent events that have happened in schools like mass shootings and even bullying, for example. And you're a mother of a daughter yourself. When you send your kids to school, how much of an impact does that make for parents and for families for that bill?
My daughter is 9. She'll be 10 when school starts back. She does not have a cell phone. I don't believe in children having cell phones until they are going places with peers. Because if she's with my sister, I can call my sister. So that's just my personal stance. But as far as banning the use of cell phones for K through 8 while they're in school, there's no reason for them to. There's no way. If I needed my daughter, I can call the school. They'll get her. I can go to the school. If that school has called me when there's been an accident on the playground. I mean, kids have gone to school for generations without access to cell phones. So I do think it's distracting, especially K through 8, because not all of them have the phones. So when 1 out of 15 has a phone, the one pulls the phone out, all the other kids are see what it is. So I do feel that they are distracting for younger kids. I don't think they have a place. I don't think there's a reason for the phone. I think it's probably, very, very unlikely that an emergency would happen in a phone where a child needed to reach a parent and wasn't allowed by the school.
Okay. Let's move on to House Bill 296, which is the digital driver's license. Okay. Your mobile driver's license is now legally valid. Just remember to keep your physical copy too. In the age of digital, some may worry, well, I don't want to put all of my information out there on the internet because I don't want my data to be compromised. I don't want my information to be hacked and what have you. And how much of an impact does this make to the average American that decides that they want to go ahead and just upload their driver's license to a mobile or a digital platform? Will that hurt or will that help people when they have to use it for whatever purposes that they have to use it for?
So I think it'd be very helpful because it's not mandatory. And because it's not mandatory, you don't have to put your information on your phone, but the fact that you can use that way will be helpful for a lot of people. People who have their cards in their digital wallets, it'd be perfect for people like that. If you don't care about your credit card information being stolen because it's on your phone, I doubt that you would care about your license being stolen. And people in a bind our phones are taking over. Our phones house all of our information. Anything we need is just in that phone. And I don't know how many times I've just run out, forgotten something, changed purses, didn't have my ID. I had to go to jail one time. Forgot I had changed my purse, and I was like, "Can I show you a picture of my license on the phone, please?" And they knew me. I've been to that particular jail several times, so she let me in. But I mean, just think about if I had it on my phone and could show. But on the flip side, if the government is not saying you must put this card on your phone, then I don't see a downside to it.
Okay, it can have its pros and cons, but a person can have the opportunity to do what is best for them in that particular situation. Mistakes happen when people accidentally leave their wallets at home, and you're in a car, you're driving. Police officer will pull you over and they are going to ask your driver's license and your registration. Oh, I left my wallet at the house, but here's my smartphone. Here's my cell phone. Here you go, officer. All right. So there's some pros in that. One last bill to go over really quick, Attorney Atkins, and that is the Protect Pets in Domestic Violence Situations House Bill 177, which allows protective orders to include pets in family or dating violence cases. And what does that mean to you, Attorney Atkins, when you hear that?
So there are the people who would say, in a domestic violence situation, who cares? The pet is just property. And there are those who would say, my pet is my family. Mm-hmm. And what you don't think about is the woman. We know that there are some men who get abused. We're going to just say woman here. The woman who has to run at the last minute and needs her dog because while her dog might not be a registered support animal, her dog has helped her get through this whole ordeal. Or the kids need the dog because the dog makes them feel safe. And then they're going to a shelter or trying to go to a shelter, and the shelter won't take the dog. So if we think of the people for whom pets are family, this bill is important because in a domestic violence situation, oftentimes you have to leave with whatever you can grab. And having to leave that pet behind when you're already in an emotionally fraught situation can sometimes make it so much worse. So I think, doing everything we can for domestic violence victims is important.
Absolutely. One last thing before we let you go, Attorney Atkins, of course, principal attorney for the Atkins law firm. For those who are just tuning in, what do you and your legal team specialize in at the Atkins law firm?
So we do a little bit of everything, but our specialty is estate planning. And just very quickly, the Black community is notorious for not estate planning, for not having a will, for not having a trust. And we have this huge problem with heirs property because grandmama didn't get a will. She left the land to 9 kids. The 9 kids had 5 kids themselves. Nobody had a will. And now we have one 20-acre piece of land owned by 55 people. And what do? And for us and in our community, we don't understand that land is wealth. That is untapped wealth, because if a developer comes in and says, I'd like to buy this 20 acres for $1 million, and you have 55 cousins, you don't know where half of them are, they haven't signed off on it, but they have a legal right to it, we can't use the wealth that our parents passed down to us. And heirs property is just one part of it, but you have families fighting in probate court because mom didn't have a will. She meant to leave this to that person, but she didn't put her wishes in place, and now the family's fighting, and now they won't talk to each other. So, estate planning is good for that, but we also are just now really getting into this trust-based planning that people with wealth have been doing for years, and that's a way to protect your assets and hold your assets for future generations. That's probably a whole show, a whole other show.
Oh, you're right. This is going to be a whole show next time, because I think, Attorney Atkins, that people underestimate when it comes to situations of wills and estates, and we don't talk enough about that in our community, and that's why you see some of the fallouts between family members and people in that particular community. There's so many disagreements because the person who passed on transition didn't put in place a proper will to let people know here's what's going to be passed down to whom and how it's going to be done and stuff. And there's just so many people that underestimate that. And I was told once upon a time, Attorney Atkins, that some people of the elder community feel like it's superstitious. I'm just using air quotes here. Superstitious to have conversations or to talk to your family members or people that that are akin to you, to have those conversations about wills, the estate, and what the inheritance process is going to look like. Like, oh, I'm afraid that such and such is going to take everything from me when I die, or oh, nothing's not going to happen to me. You all going to get everything that you all need to have, or whatever. But it's not being put in paper. That's not being put on paper, nor it's not going through the proper legal process. And there's a disparity in that. Absolutely. So I would definitely love to have you come back on, and we can definitely talk more about that, because it's so important to have a very huge conversation surrounding that. But for more information and people that want to get in contact with you and your team, how can they get in contact with you for any questions that they may have, consultation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
So they can give us a call. Our main phone number is 478-216-8784. We do practice all over the state, and we have offices in Warner Robins, Georgia, in Decatur, and Norcross. And so you call us there, and we can have a conversation.
Can you give the viewers the telephone number one more time so that way we can have it up on the screen?
It's 478-216-8784.
8784. Okay, we're going to have it up on the screen in just a few moments. And the website is AtkinsLawLLC.com to learn more about your legal team, your legal services, and to get the help that people need. Any last remarks that you would like to make to our viewers before we let you go?
Just don't make any statements. Call your lawyer. Always call your lawyer.
Contact your lawyer, contact your attorney, and make sure you have your attorney on speed dial, even if it's Atkins Law.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Attorney Atkins. We really appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak to our viewers today about their legal rights. I know there's so much more to expound on when it comes to the legal system, especially when it comes to wills and estates and stuff. So I definitely would love to have you back on in the near future. And again, thank you for your time.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you so much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Sean Garvey and my special guest. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in to Sean Garvey and my special guest. Thank you so much.